Hey everyone, welcome back to the Intuitively Guided podcast. I have a very special friend here today, my friend Cameron Lynn, who is a Reiki Master Teacher, subconscious journey guide, and self-healing mentor. Cameron, welcome to the podcast.
Hello. I'm so grateful to be here. So grateful. It's so nice to get to connect with you, being that we were trained together. It is very good to be here. Thank you for
Yes,
inviting me.
of course. So, for everyone who doesn't know Cameron, we actually met doing Reiki at this local place called Sacred Space in Oceanside, and our journeys have just really connected quite well, I think. And I always think of Cam as like my little sister. So, I'm really excited to talk to her today, and we're going to be discussing my absolute favorite thing, Reiki. And we haven't talked about it on the podcast yet. So I wanted to start off by asking you, like, what is Reiki to you? Like, how would you describe it?
So, Reiki to me is the way I like to describe it. Basic level is it is a Japanese technique of energy healing. It's a hands-on technique where the practitioner channels life force energy. And I normally will connect how life force energy is the energy that brings you into this world and the energy that will bring you out as well. And so actually being able to connect to those things and restart your body at those energetic levels is so amazing, as well as it promotes healing for the physical, emotional, mental, and energetic body. And that is just absolutely amazing by hitting that energetic root.
Yes, I love that. And just to add to what you said, how I like to describe it is kind of like the three bodies, what you were saying. I
Mm.
always say, like, you go to a doctor for your physical body, you go to a therapist or something, right, to talk about your mental stuff. Like, most people don't go to someone to take care of their energetic body. And that's really like where all your problems start, essentially. So,
Yep.
time it's like in
Yeah.
your physical body, this problem, this thing that you've been avoiding has been there for a long time,
Yes.
and Reiki could help address that and help
It
you
ties
discover. Mhm.
I tie it into I remember what we were taught with Aaron, or even just in general, how many books have this information. The correlation from just the word disease to being dis-ease in your energetic field before anything hits that physical body, any illness, ailment, broken bone, scratch, anything, there was something sitting in your energetic body. And
Mhm.
if you're putting off emotional, any emotion, it's going to sit, even there's a bigger manifestation sitting within that energetic body. And each time it's put off and put off and put off, it grows.
Mhm.
And so when things happen, like uh in specific, I work with a group of like retired people and everything like that. A lot of them have hip problems. And
Mhm.
we have done the tremoring with Kira,
Mhm.
and how that is the focus of the trauma that stores within the hips, and how many people have just things that go on within their whole entire life that they'd never touch within that energetic body.
Mhm. Yes, 100%. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that, right? Like a lot of like what's it called? It's not terminal illness, but a lot of like those chronic illnesses
Yes,
that like pop up, like people have digestive issues, all of these different
yes.
things, right? Especially I feel like in people our age, like in their 20s.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that is a result of like stress, anxiety,
Yes.
like other things that happened when you were younger. And it's just like
Yes.
coming up to the surface now, unfortunately.
Yes. Oh, yes. The mention of it being when it was younger is such a big thing, because especially like in Reiki in general, is it depends on each practitioner, because it becomes an extension of that practitioner itself. And so it's so beautiful because it interacts with everyone in different ways. And I love it because when you, like you mentioned younger, that's my focus. I love to focus on that inner child part, because so many people forget that it's those childhood, those teen years, and even those early like 20s. where those monumental things happen, but especially before the age of 5, while your brain is developing and your body is trying to structure itself. If you're in that fight or flight already, you're from that point, your whole entire life, you're in that fight or flight. Whether you realize it or not, you can be acting out of trauma responses, and you have been your whole entire life.
100%. And it's so easy to not realize that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what was your first experience with Reiki?
Oh, I love the story how I got introduced to Reiki. It was actually a time in my life where I was really at like a crossroads, and I worked at a place where there was a woman who I was very close with, and she was someone I kind of considered my first spiritual mentor, because she was the first person that I could full-blown talk to about what I was experiencing and not feel like I was being judged in any way, shape, or form. And like, she understood what I meant. And she actually introduced me to Erin and gave me all of Erin's information. And that night I had texted her and was like, "Hi, my name's Cameron. I really need help. I don't know anything about you, but like her name's Elena. She's an amazing woman. So grateful for her. But I was like, Elena said you're amazing. She said you'll help me, please." And me and Erin, we started off with a distance session first, and my life changed. My life changed, like, from that experience. Like, I still have so much emotional attachment to it, because Reiki has literally changed my life.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but connecting with the energy of unconditional love and having that limitless space was the most amazing feeling. I can't even describe it. It's just like, you have to experience it to know. And it's just like, Reiki saved my life. That was my first experience with it, and from there I kept going every single month. And a year later I was like, I want to be attuned, I want to start my own business, and and then my whole attunement process was something that really moved so quickly. I am so proud of myself. Like, I am amazed with myself for how quickly I was able to get through it. But this is stuff that's changed my life. Like,
yeah, I think that one, like, Reiki is such a weird thing to describe, right? Like, we just like said like our little like elevator pitch about Reiki, right? But
yes.
when you actually experience Reiki energy, it's really hard to describe, right? Like, people say that like you're in a meditative state,
Yes.
you're like in this state of relaxation, all these things, but until you actually like feel and experience Reiki energy, like, it's really hard to grasp. Like, there's really no words that you could put to it.
It's not even like just relaxation. Like, it's how do I put this into words? The feeling of being within, like, home within yourself, that you've never ever left. Nothing has ever happened to you, nothing's ever touched you. You're protected beyond all control. It's just the safest, most loving energy, and it meets you where you're at.
Yeah,
it's gonna show you what you need what you need in that moment. So like, my first experience with Reiki, I needed a lot of unconditional love and support. I felt that changed my life, and that's exactly that happens. But I have clients that don't have like that first experience where we even really touch on a focus of unconditional love. Like it will meet you where you're at, which is amazing.
Yeah. I think two things there. One thing, like Reiki, kind of drawing from what you said, is like being like held and protected, right? Like it's this feeling of being like safe. So I just wanted to echo that. And
Yes.
then where you're like Reiki meets you where you're at, like Reiki asks nothing of you, right? As someone who is like receiving
Yeah.
Reiki. So like you could show up and you could not have an intention, right? You could just be like, I want to like feel Reiki energy, like
Yeah.
let's see like what this is like, right? And like you're
Yes.
held and protected in that energy. And if you just wanted like a meditative, relaxation state, like that's like what's given to you. But if there's something where you're like, I'm going through this, like this cycle is coming up,
Yeah.
or like I'm having like a really bad month at work, right?
Yeah.
All these things, like Reiki meets you where you're at for that, to support
Yes.
you in that moment, which is
Yes.
pretty incredible.
Yes. Well, like tying also into that, it goes into really like that person doesn't have to be doing an intense self-work to be receiving Reiki or anything like that. It like Reiki is a great thing to use even with Western medicine. And it works side by side with a lot of things. Like my brother had gotten surgery a few years ago, and instantly like I went over, gave him Reiki, and within the week he was like, I feel good, like I've got surgery, cool.
Yeah, and that goes back to like what like Aaron taught us, is like
Yep.
Reiki can do no harm, right? Because
Yes.
it's held in that place of unconditional
Yes.
love. So like even if like you had surgery, you're on all this medicine, like it doesn't hurt for me to give you Reiki if you
No.
want it. Or like if someone's like anxious or knows that there's something coming up, like it doesn't hurt to give Reiki
No.
in that situation, right? It could only help.
It could only help.
Yeah, so I
Oh,
think that's pretty amazing. My first experience with Reiki was a little bit different, but like also similar to you, where I was actually working with one of my psychic medium mentors. I was
yeah.
going through like a really tough breakup at the time. And I was just like, I can't stop thinking about this, right? And I just felt like really stuck. And she was giving me a reading. She was like, well, it feels like there's a chord there, and we could get a little bit more into chords in a minute.
Mhm.
Like, do you want me to give you Reiki to help you like with this chord?
Yeah.
Essentially. And I was like, if you think it's going to help, I will try
Give
anything.
it.
Right.
Please.
So she gave me like a distance session. She did it while I was like sleeping, and I woke up and I felt like a new person. Like I like had forgotten about that relationship, and I was I like don't understand how this happened, but I knew I had to be trained in it. I didn't even really know what Reiki was, right? She was just like,
Yeah.
I have this thing called Reiki, like let me do it. And I was like, I don't know what this was, but this helped, and I need to get trained in it. Like eventually. And she was a Reiki master, but she didn't train people. And I was like, okay, well, hell, like who's gonna do this for me?
Yeah.
Right. And that's like when I moved to California, and I literally
Yes.
found Aaron like the week after. And I was like, this is who's supposed to teach
This
me.
is this is it.
Yeah. So like again, that just goes to like there are so many things that Reiki can help with, right? It
Yes.
helps with like your relationships, with heartbreak,
Yes.
which I think like are very common for a lot of people, right? The stresses to your day.
Especially in this day and age and in this society with how
Yeah.
people look at relationships. Yeah, 100%. And not even just heartbreak from like romantic relationships, heartbreak from anything, losing
Mhm.
something you care about.
Yes. Yes. 100%. Like I always say that there are no limits to how you could use Reiki.
None.
Like there are probably things that I haven't even thought about or tried that would be like great for Reiki, right?
Well, it ties into us like how I was saying a little bit earlier. I actually don't remember if I was saying it earlier. Um, if how each practitioner is different. and how each person attuned to Reiki, it becomes an extension of them. And it ties into literally just the statement of how we're all the universe experiencing itself through a human form. And doing that, like, it's not one, not two Reiki practitioners are going to be the same. We were trained by the same person, and our Reiki does not look the same at all. And that's what's so beautiful about it, because there are no limits to it. I know people that are Reiki attuned and paint with Reiki. Like, it becomes that extension of you. You don't even have to work on people to become attuned to Reiki. Purely the self-healing aspect is beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
100%. So let's talk a little bit about, because I'm sure like no one really knows like what the attunement means, right? So Reiki is usually based off of the 7 chakras, right? And the idea is when you're going to Reiki training, so usually there's a level 1 and level 2, you are learning, right, how to do Reiki, but you're also being attuned to the energy, which is innate within us. It's just like your body remembering that it can do this essentially. And you're becoming a clear channel. Is what the idea is. So, and by clear channel, that means that you could channel this life force energy that Cam was talking about before. So that's what the attunement process is. You get attuned to all the 7 chakras when you go through the 3 levels. And different things can happen.
At least in specific, Aaron did work with the chakras. I do know some people that work specifically with like our meridians and things like that, but there are some, we went through the chakras.
100%. That's how we were trained, and that's how I use Reiki. I think
that's how I do too.
Right. So that's a good call. There are obviously, like Cam said, tons of people use Reiki different ways, so you could learn it different ways. But the way that we were taught, right, you get attuned to each chakra. Those chakras have innate qualities to them, and that aligns you to this energy that you can channel clearer, right? So there is something else. Oh, so then I wanted to jump into how, because you were saying like every practitioner uses it different, even like you and I. So how do you use Reiki?
How do I use Reiki? Oh, that is such a question. For one, that kind of like goes into my business. My business, for one, the name of it is A Soul Story Healing. That name really came up like through a meditative experience, and the point of my business was to connect people back to their soul stories, and that's back to their authentic core, which is a core of unconditional love, in my opinion, and in my beliefs. And so with that, and especially within my journey, has been a self-healing journey. So my focus of Reiki is within that self-healing journey as to where you don't need me. I will appear like when you absolutely, worst comes to worst, like you need that extra boost or you need that other step that you can't get to yourself, but I'm not someone you need, because you have everything you already need within you. As well as the focus of inner child healing, which I had said in a little bit earlier, I focus on trauma work. Before I got into Reiki, I was in school to be a therapist. And so I love to talk to people and hear about the things that go on that no one wants to talk about, because I know within my practice is to help transmute it. And a lot of people have a lot of issues with transmuting that negative energy. And that's a part of my Reiki as well, transmuting that negative energy that I do come in contact with. Another thing is that We do the soul guided journey work. My take on it was the name subconscious journey work, focusing on telling people that it's that subconscious reprogramming that needs to be done. And that has been instilled since those very young ages. I love to explain to people that your root chakra is something that is based off of your mother when you're born. And so even if your mother wasn't in a stable state, energetically, anything, that infant, that baby that was just brought into the world already doesn't have a stable root. And it's like these things aren't talked about. And so my focus of Reiki has been to really talk about the things that aren't talked about and using my voice as my extension of Reiki. And when I talk, I thoroughly believe that you can feel what it is I talk about when you're supposed to feel it and when you resonate with me. There's no doubt in my mind that I'm heard.
Yeah, 100%. And just to touch on, right, you spoke about like the root chakra when you're born. There's also all that like ancestral trauma that we carry just like within ourselves that, again, a lot of people don't know about and or understand, right? So like things that happened like, you know, before we were born, before our parents were born, grandparents, right? Like we carry all of that, and it could be a reason why you're facing certain cycles. Right.
Yes. Well, even going into just how like Reiki is a great thing if you're trained to other things, it's great to hold space. So like with the soul guided journey work and everything, that's more of that meditative hypnotherapy experience. And it's much different than Reiki. It's not hands-on consistently. It's very much going deep, and you like feel the energetic shifts, what changes through the energies. It's like Reiki is just amazing in general. It literally, there's nothing it can't do, basically, is what I'm trying to get across.
Yeah. And I would say in the like soul guided work that you and I both do, Reiki is used to like hold you right in this protected space, so that when you're going in to like that inner child's work to uncover this trauma and all life, that, like whatever it is, anything. Like being held, you're protected, like you are safe. And I think that's how we both use Reiki in that sense. So Cam does, right, like this really like deep work, right? Things that most people are hiding, right? From themselves, from society, from their loved ones, like things that they're not equipped to face on their own, right? She's there for support, I would say, and to help facilitate that. The way that I use Reiki is, again, a little bit the same, probably like a lot different. So I do like traditional, just like distance sessions where it's like, you know, I don't feel myself, like, and I just need like a refresh, right? Something's off, I'm exhausted, all of these things. So I deal with like a lot of that stuff, some very more like grounded, like 3D, right? Like I don't feel well, I'm gonna get a Reiki session. And that's how I use Reiki also like in my personal life. I'm like, you know, something is off and I know Reiki is going to fix this.
I actually I can't go a day without giving myself Reiki. If I do, it's a huge difference like in me. I'm like, oh, I could be a little bit more grounded today.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then the other way that I use Reiki with clients is I have like a session, I call it a soul session, which is kind of bringing in that like soul guided journey work and Reiki. And what I see like my clients who get that most often, right? They're either facing something where it's like, I'm trying to manifest this thing and it just like, repeatedly doesn't happen. right?
Yes.
And that's when I combine my intuitive work where it's like, let's talk about this. Like, what's the real problem at hand? And
Yeah.
then we do like a shamanic journey, kind of like what Cam was saying, to like journey to that point where that belief was set, right? And again, I use Reiki to hold everyone in that space, and bring that whatever it is to light for self-discovery. Um,
Yeah.
because kind of what Cam was saying, like a lot of what we deal with just day to day, right, is as a result of our subconscious and
Yep.
what we were told as kids or what we um
Even
learned,
nowadays,
like stuff like that.
we're acting out of our subconscious over 90% of our life.
Hmm.
Over 90% of our, I think it's like 95%. So it's like only 5% of our conscious mind are we actually within this 3D reality.
Hmm.
Because everything else, as crazy as it is an illusion that we've made up for ourselves.
Yes, that's the story that you're telling yourself. I think that Erin says that a lot, right? Especially when we did the soul guided journey. Like,
Yeah.
what's the story that you're telling yourself, and where did that stem from?
Yeah.
Right? Because like a lot of people say, right, there's multiple sides to a story, and like what you see in it, it can have effect on you, but the other person can be like, oh no, that was just like a normal day, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about like, what story are you telling yourself, and why is that keeping you back from doing whatever it is that
Mhm.
you are seeking out?
Well, and it's great because Reiki, as well as the soul guided journey work, it provides access to that highest self, to where there is no ego involved. And
Hmm.
so it's like when we're going back into these memories and into these cores, it's not like, yes, you at some point we do feel through the negativity because it is something that needs to be released. That's a very big thing. You cannot put it off. If it's showing up, it needs to be released and it needs to be felt. Um, but just in general, that the journey work itself allows one to just completely lost my train of thought. I just looked down and I just saw 11:11 and I just completely lost my train of thought.
No worries. I'm sure it will come back to you.
I'm
Um,
sure it will. Ugh,
yeah,
that
but
happens so much to me.
um, going back to like who can benefit from Reiki, right? Like we've spoke about like Reiki, and it sounds like crazy, right? Reiki could be used for anything. Anyone can benefit from Reiki, like no matter what's happening in your life, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's like two parts of it. It's like people who only are interested in receiving Reiki, and I think we spoke a lot about that. Like how can for like Cam and I, right? If you had something going on, how would we address that with Reiki? And we spoke
Yes.
about that a lot. And
Well, I
oh, go ahead.
I feel like that kind of ties into, again, like the individual practitioner, and going into the practitioner is going to meet you where like you need to see where they're seeing themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You can
Yes,
you
100%.
can only go like if you're going to someone that does have those subliminal limits, and most of the time if you're going to someone like this, you don't see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think like what you're saying is right. There's so many different practitioners. There's so many
Yes.
people who work with Reiki. Um, the first person that you get Reiki from, it might not be like a click. It's kind of like how like
Yes.
you see a therapist and maybe like a
Yes.
therapist isn't doing it for you. Like it has
Yes.
nothing to do with like what they're doing. It's just like who they are and how they work.
No, it's they don't have a bad practice.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with their practice. Their practice works perfectly for them and is getting them to the point that they need to get to in their own timing.
Mm-hmm.
It's purely though you need to like it's gonna be projected onto you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually like it's what am I trying to say? The intention behind it is so huge.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I think even just talking like you and I, right, we attract like completely different clients, right?
Yes.
So like if like let's say like someone got a Reiki session with me, right? And we did that one thing, but like the next time they talk to me and they're like really want to dive into like this deep thing,
Yes.
like I could not feel comfortable with that. And I'm like, hey, go see Cam for like this thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like how doctors have different
Yes.
specialties, right?
Yes. No,
Um,
it's completely like that. And like going, because the conversation being about like who's Reiki for and everything, it's for everyone.
mhm,
There is a practitioner for what you need.
mhm,
Not every practitioner is going to be for you, but there is someone for
mhm.
you. Why? Because you do not walk this earth alone. Collectively, you do not walk it alone. There is someone that will be able to energetically step you out, if that makes sense. Uh,
Mhm. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And then I just also want to touch on, right, because Reiki and intuition, right, that's like a
yes,
huge thing for
yes,
me. Like Reiki, and I don't know if I said this on the podcast previously, but Reiki is how like I knew I was intuitive before I did Reiki. Reiki is how like I discovered my mediumship abilities, they became even stronger, all
yeah.
of these things. Can you talk about like your relationship with like Reiki and intuition?
So, yeah, I'm actually really excited you brought that up because that's actually something that I myself have been even more recently finding confidence within myself. Um, Tying into the work that I do and at that very, very deep level, there's not any deep level, like there's nothing I'm scared to go and hear about. Like I know I've been told if you look into my eyes, you could see that I would forgive like a murderer.
Mhm.
It was a weird, I don't know if it was a compliment. Probably wasn't, but in like my eyes, I'm like, well,
Uh,
yeah, because people can change. Like people make
mhm,
mistakes. And it's just the factor of whether everything around you is convincing you that you're not this way or you're supposed to be a certain way or blah blah blah, or like that you can't change, you can't get yourself back from a point, you can't recover yourself. um with the work I do, I see what part of self is appearing within this 3D reality,
mm,
whether you're walking within your ego, whether you're walking within your shadow, whether you are literally acting as your like great grandma that passed
mhm,
like a few centuries ago. If your inner child is not being heard, that is the first person I see though. uh Stepping into a nurturing role, that support that I give is I am very big on showing that part that doesn't want to
mm,
receive it, even because it's so hard. I'm gonna keep pushing it. Love is gonna hit it at some point. um Another thing with that is my intuitive abilities within my body.
mhm,
I personally connect with Reiki through um, sensations through my body. When my clients are on the table, if I need to go somewhere, I feel it within my body if I don't just naturally go over there. Um, as well as I hear things. Uh,
mhm,
as crazy as that sounds, um, I hear a lot of messages, as well as if someone is talking about a past loved one, connecting them to some kind of message through that loved one, only when they're talking though. Like if they're talking about them, then I'm like, oh, they're right here. Like
mhm,
I feel them. They're like right behind you. And it's Reiki has given me a chance to connect with the magic of life
mhm,
and not feel crazy for it,
mhm.
because it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Like to me at this point, it's more crazy to think that this stuff doesn't exist.
Mhm.
Like if there's nothing else. It's crazy.
Yeah, I agree. And I think just you sharing, right, like how you receive information in a Reiki session, right? How, again, everyone's different, right? How you're receiving information is completely different than
Yes.
I am, right?
Yes.
You're seeing like parts of self, parts of the soul, like you're getting messages in different ways. Obviously, like I connect to past loved ones, guides,
Yes.
and usually I just like intuitively know where to work
Yeah.
on a body. And I also intuitively know usually like what that resulted from, like um
Yeah.
whatever that is in the body. And I think that just goes back to my point. I always tell people this, like if you want to like become intuitive, if you want to like grow those intuitive skills, like get attuned to
Get
Reiki,
attuned to Reiki.
right? Because again, it's making you that clear
Well,
channel.
it opens the channel. Even just the Reiki one, I think, oh my God, it was so long ago. I wish I would have saved the picture, but it was like, I think everyone that like I know that has been through sacred space
Mhm,
reposted this. That is
mhm,
like Reiki attuned. It was like an image where it was like cut up into 4 squares, and it was a person like in a meditative position, and it shows the chakras and how they expand with each
mhm,
attunement and how it connects within that master attunement.
mhm.
And just like that one attunement alone, like awakening the chakras. Because I mean, you can personally, I open my chakras without Reiki.
And you can do that, right? That's like
You can
energy
do that.
healing,
You
right?
can you can grow your intuitive abilities without Reiki. Um, I would just say Reiki, like it is just that connection to like that highest energy, that
Mhm.
highest vibrational energy.
And it also, and I'm not saying like it's all like love and butterflies, right?
Oh,
Because like even though like you're getting attuned to the different chakras, you're becoming an open channel. There are things like I got Reiki attuned when I was like 26, I guess, right? There were things like from the 26 years that I was alive that were
yep,
blocking me and had to come
yep,
to the surface, right? Like especially with things with my intuition, right?
yeah,
Like a lot of imposter syndrome stuff, like a lot of ancestral stuff came
yeah.
up. So it's not like all rainbows and butterflies. Like when you get attuned, you're faced with things that you have to heal or you have the opportunity to heal, right? I guess you could always
Well,
ignore them.
it's because free will is always in play. You don't have to be doing this work. Like you don't have to be doing that basically service to self, because like Reiki becomes a service to self. Like in some way, shape, or form, whether you're putting hands on self or not, that channel is open. And so you are going to be receiving and connected to that part of self and that connection, that vibration. So it's not just going to disappear. It is always there. And so it's like, even if you're trying to bypass this channel within you, it will pop up again when you need to reconnect with it.
And that's something that happens, right? Even if you're not Reiki attuned, right? That's
Yeah,
why like
no,
these
that's
cycles, these
yes,
blocks like always
yes,
come up. It
yes,
maybe just becomes more apparent when you're Reiki attuned because you're more
yes,
sensitive to the change in energies and stuff
yes.
like that.
Well, because it helps grow that intuition as well as the trust within self. And like in all honesty, it's not just that feeling that you get that is like, oh yeah, I feel safe to do this. It is because of what it provides you while you are in that mental space.
Hmm.
It is able to provide you the support that on this physical realm isn't able to give you.
Hmm.
And not everyone has access to that. Sometimes it's a little bit harder if you don't have that straight channel.
Hmm.
And so that attunement, it just has that quicker access point, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because it's like clearing out all of that like doubt that you
Yeah.
have, fear, um like all that stuff that you don't want to face that's really like holding you back from
Yes.
like living like your true authentic life, like that comes to the surface when you get Reiki attuned.
Yep.
But again, like if it happens, right, that's the path that you're on, right? Like it's not like it's
Yeah.
not like all of a sudden like you're like, oh, I guess I'm just gonna walk into this Reiki class, then you get attuned and like your whole life like turns upside
Yeah,
down, right?
no, it's
Like it's something that like your soul like expects almost, right?
you feel called to it. Like
Mhm.
it's like I'm supposed to do this. And if I was to tell my body or like that part of me no, I know like I would get sick.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like it's I would feel the repercussions for not listening to that authentic part of myself that is wanting to show up in what is needed within this body that's trying to grow vibrate like to a
Mhm.
higher vibration. It's not happening.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think just to take it like a step down, right? Like obviously you and I are doing like deep healing work with
Yes.
Reiki. Reiki doesn't have to be used in that capacity, right?
No.
Like Reiki can be like there are nurses who get attuned to Reiki to help with
Yes.
that. There are parents who want to do it with their kids. Like there are people who just want to
Yes.
give Reiki to their pets, right?
Yes.
Like you could take it like from 0 to 100 like anytime you
Yeah.
want, but if you want to stay like in this very like grounded like level, like if you're a nurse, a physical therapist, occupational therapist, like these are all people that do get attuned to Reiki to
Yes.
help their patients. And I'm sure that
Well,
there are
because
tons of other ways too.
it does no harm.
Hmm.
It does no harm and it works in like it's cohesive with anything you would want to pair it with. There isn't one like spiritual path that I don't think Reiki wouldn't work well with.
Hmm.
Um, yoga teachers that are Reiki attuned,
Hmm.
amazing. Guided like meditative people.
Like meditation facilitators.
Yes, meditation
Yeah.
facilitators that are Reiki attuned,
Hmm.
amazing. Um, sound healers, Reiki attuned,
Hmm.
amazing. Like it works in cohesion with anything, and as well as you don't have to be on that spiritual path because just as you're saying, normal like nurses. Um, I know there's people I know within the military that are attuned
Mm.
and stuff. Like it ties into it's gonna meet you where you're at. It's gonna give you what you need. It's not the expectation or like this you see how it's affecting me or how it's affecting you or how
Hmm.
my story ends up now or how yours ended up or how anything has
Yeah.
happened with you. Every single thing is going to be different.
Hmm.
Every single thing. And it's like that needs to be stressed so hugely because it's like you can not be within this path and you can get Reiki attuned and you could be I know hairstylists uh
Hmm.
hairstylists that are Reiki attuned like it's anything that it doesn't harm and if I'd say like if you're in any kind of service that's with helping others
Hmm.
it definitely doesn't hurt.
Yes. I completely agree. Again, Reiki can do no harm. We're Reiki's
Yeah.
biggest cheerleaders over here. Um,
Again, not just for like others, but like for yourself.
yeah, and at the I don't think we ever stated this, right? Like we both like I know Cam wanted to share this with others, but I got Reiki attuned, right? Because I was like, I got to figure out how to do this to myself, right? Most Reiki healers are here to heal themselves and then heal others. And another thing that we didn't touch on that I always tell my Reiki students is even if you're giving Reiki to someone, right? Because you're
Mhm.
being that clear channel and Reiki
It's
is coming
still
through
passing through
you,
you.
you're healing yourself.
You're
Exactly.
still receiving it. Yep.
And that's just like I don't want to say the most magical part, but it's one of the most magical parts, right? By healing others, you can heal yourself.
Well, yes. I what I find amazing, at least in particular to how I see life and everything, um, there's not a person I don't meet that I don't see a reflection of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm meeting you as I would meet me, and I'm gonna give me everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's no one I love more. And that's because like it's Reiki has been able to reconnect me with that part of myself. because I wasn't like this all the time.
Mhm.
5 years ago, unrecognizable. Unrecognizable. And like your life changes in the ways it needs to,
Mhm. Yeah.
all for the best of your good. Like it's for your best good, for your highest good. Sometimes it's a little hard though.
I love that. I think that's a great way to end this episode.
Yes.
So why don't you tell everyone before we sign off, how they can find you and how they can work with you?
Okay, so right now I just moved to Oregon. Well, it didn't just move, it's been about 6 months now. So with anyone that is not located in Southern Oregon, I am doing distance sessions. You can reach me at my website. Everything is very, very accessible. asoulstoryhealing.com, asoulstoryhealing.com. And through that, there's links to my email, as well as at the bottom of the page, there is my for all my social media, and I'm accepting DMs and emails for any kind of booking and sessions. And honestly, if anyone just has questions or really just feels called to going deeper and feels like they may resonate with that deep self healing journey, you know who to call.
I love it. I'll put all of your information in the show notes for the podcast too.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for being
Thank
here. I
you
had a
for
great
having
time.
me. Oh, it was so amazing to talk to
No,
you.
I love you. Okay, well,
I
everyone,
love
we'll
you.
see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Bye.